Good evening, everybody. It is my pleasure to invite you to this evening's lecture on human trafficking by Justice S.R. Bannurmath. Justice Bannurmath needs no introduction, but since we have some young students in the audience, I just want to introduce him formally and thank him for joining us this evening. Justice Bannurmath is a former Chief Justice of Kerala High Court. He was the chairman of the Maharashtra State Human Rights Commission. He most recently retired as the chairperson of the Karnataka State Law Commission. He has also served as a judge of our High Court here, and we look to him lovingly also as a member of our Jurist Commission, and he has been regularly advising us and been a part of us today. Justice Bannurmath studied law in Belgaum, and he's also famously known as the first Chief Justice of India to declare his assets in 2009, along with all the other judges. May I request Vivek Holla to please kindly gift him a sapling to thank him for coming. So may I kindly request you to now please give a lecture.
Our senior leader, Shri B.V. Acharya, my good old friends, when I was at the bar, many of whom practiced before me here, and my young friend advocates. Purnima and others were after me to come and give some lecture. Since I was in law commission, I could not find time. So after laying down the office, I promised that I will come. And today I am here before you on an important topic, which is human trafficking, which is the least bothered crime against humanity. Now, 30th July has been declared by the United Nations as the World Anti-Human Trafficking Day. And the theme of this year is Leave No Child Behind in the Fight Against Human Trafficking. This theme highlights the critical need of our attention towards protecting mainly the children and in general all the victims from human trafficking. Now, according to the United Nations stats, children are twice as likely to face violence and human trafficking, both mentally and physically. Despite global efforts, 1 out of 3 trafficking victims are children. And as such, we have to look into what is the trafficking, what is the cause, and what remedies we can offer. Now, the enormity of this human trafficking is mind-boggling. This is the 3rd biggest crime where profits are made. The first one is narcotic trade, where the profit from this illegal activity is estimated to be $350 billion. $350 billion. The second is the illegal arms trade, which is around $300 billion. And the third is, which is nearing now to the top, is human trafficking, which is around $250 to $275 billion. This data is sufficient to awaken us to look into what is the problem. Now, most of the time, it is a stereotype understanding of everybody that human trafficking means trafficking for sex offenses or for prostitution. But that is not correct. Human trafficking is much more a broader umbrella comprising of both individual and composite acts. Now, this is defined by the United Nations Trafficking Protocol as follows. Trafficking in person shall mean the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, deception, of the abuse of power, or of a positive vulnerability, or giving or receiving payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Now, this exploitation, what is specially mentioned there, defined, exploitation shall include, at a minimum, the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, and illegal removal of organs. Now, if we break down this, it is evident that there are three important considerations. First one is the act, that is, what is done. It is recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of the victim. Now, what is next? It is the means, that is, how it is done. Threat or use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or vulnerability, or giving payment or benefits to a person in control of the victim. And the third is the purpose, why it is done. For exploitation, which includes exploiting for prostitution, forced labor, slavery, or similar practices, and now it is including illegal removal of organs. While true scale of this trafficking is not known, the data collected by International Labour Organization and an NGO, Walk Free Foundation, have estimated that in the year 2022, nearly 50 million people are the victims of human trafficking. Now, out of this 50 million, 71% are women and children, 29% are men and boys, and 54% of these 50 million are sexually exploited, 38% are used as forced labor, and 8% are used for other purposes, including trafficking for illegal removal of the organs. Now, nearly out of this, 30.2 million victims are aged 18 or above, and remaining 10.1 million are children below 18 years. The forced labor is one of the major concerns, and the statistics is nearly 16 million forced labor victims work in domestic help, construction, agriculture, or plantation. Now, at international level, Nepal, China, Pakistan, Mexico, South America, some states of Africa, Kazakhstan, etc., are the leading human trafficking countries. To some extent, India is unfortunately contributing as a mid-range nation in this human trafficking. Coming back to the India, although no reliable, thorough study has been done about prostitution or sex workers or forced bonded laborers, etc., as per various NGOs' statistics, nearly 20 to 30 million people are victims of this forced labor alone. And similarly, there are more than 50 to 20 million sex workers, most of them being victims of human trafficking and in major cities in India. Now, it is reported that there are three terms in respect of this trafficking. One is source, another is destination, and third is transit. These countries are involved in this. Now, what I mean by source, the place from where victims are secured, are available, or taken away. Destination is to which country they are transported or trafficked. And third is transit country, that is coming from one country, sometime they stay in India and then they are sent away. According to the latest NCRB report, National Crimes Bureau report, trafficking in minor children and women has increased 20-fold in the last 1 decade. Now, in India, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, West Bengal, and Karnataka, as well as Maharashtra, are the high sources as well as destination areas for this human trafficking. Recently, Hindu newspaper reported that there are nearly 11,000 human trafficking cases reported in 3 years, that is 2019 to 2022. Now, so far as Karnataka is concerned, the Ministry of Home Affairs itself has said that there have been more than 1,000 human trafficking cases in the last 5 years. And unfortunately, the conviction is less than 0.5% of these cases. A few days back, there are good attempts by the investigating agencies in stopping these. Few days back, CCB sleuths rescued 17 women who were being transported to Dubai under the guise of giving a job as a nurse or other home workers. But they were in fact being transported for prostitution. In another case, 95 women, young girls, were caught, which were being sent to Dubai under false passports and documents, on the promise that they will be given either high-profile job or even for cinema, acting. And these innocent girls were going out, and once they land in the destination country, they are the human slaves. Now, another trafficking racket was shocking, that 6 babies aged 11 months to 2.5 years were being trafficked. The police arrested 4 persons, including a private hospital owner and 3 nurses who were literally stealing the children to sell it to childless parents. These are just tip of iceberg. We don't have exact study on this trafficking. Now, what is the purpose of this human trafficking? The purpose is, first one is, of course, commercial sexual exploitation. Second is forced or bonded labors, be it agriculture, plantation, labors in hotel, brick kilns in India, then mines, or as domestic servants. Now, third is illegal adoption for the opposite purposes. Only for these purposes, adoption is carried out legal adoption many times, but the object is not to rear the child or bring up the child, but to sell it afterwards. Now, third is child marriage, of course. Under the guise of child marriage, again, human trafficking takes place, and begging. Now, I was mention here my experience as Human Rights Commission chairman in Maharashtra. My office was near Victoria Terminal, Chhatrapati Shivaji railway station. And when I used to go to my house, I used to see particular lady carrying a child in a jhola, what is bag like made up of sari, and begging that I don't have milk, so give me money or give me money for medicine to the child is sick. And this was everywhere, almost every traffic lights, I used to see that. And same lady, but different child. So I sent my investigation team, and it was found that the children were kidnapped from other states, and they were drugged with opium. So always they are sleeping, and this lady is carrying those children. So of course, we busted a small racket. Now the another shocking was, many times where the parents, both the parents are working, they engage a ayah or a babysitter, and there was a racket. These babysitters, some of them, used to take out the child, hand over to the trafficking people. They used to come in a car, take the child, make them wear them bad clothes or torn clothes, change their facial expression, and make them beg. And by the time the parent comes back, the child is back again in the home. There were 17 such incidents we were able to find out. Now, another worst is fine. This is at least they are safe. Another is if the children from other states are kidnapped, they are made disabled, either blinded or their hands are broken or leg is broken, and then they are made to beg. And there is a big gang of these beggars management. They are big shots. They come there. They are small people who are made to sit along with or walk along with the children. And then in the evening, they come and collect the money, whatever is earned by this begging child. And then some percentage is given and remaining is taken by the kingpins. Now the next object after begging is again carrier for smuggling, especially narcotic drugs. Then for terrorist activities, the children were being used, like Kashmir, for stone pelting. Children were always in the front. Now, of course, it has less. But earlier, children were sent in front while pelting the stones. Because if they caught, punishment is less. Now, recruitment for commission of crimes, again continuation, theft, pickpocketing, robbery, and even for murder. Again, by using this, the masters know that as the punishment for these juveniles is very less, even for murder, it is hardly 3 years. So that use them for these criminal activities, that is the recruitment for that purpose. And selling the children for the childless couples. These are the very purposes. Now, what is the cause of this? First and foremost is the extreme poverty or ignorance of the people. Now these traffickers take advantage of the poverty and under the guise of helping them, under the guise of financial help or job, they take away the children or even younger girls. This is one of the cause. Now secondly, there was a racket still going on sometimes under the guise of marriage to a rich person, especially in the Middle East. They used, Hyderabad, there were a number of such similar cases. They used to bring that person wearing those Arabian clothes or something and introduce to the parents of the girl that he's a sheikh or oil well owner, and then get him married. Most of the times in Hyderabad it was seen that they were minors or even elder. And then they will take them and they become the slaves of those persons. Now in Bombay, every day, many young and boys and girls come to Bombay to become cinema actors. And this is exploited by these masters of trafficking. They lure them from their villages or places with a promise that they will get acting job in movies. And in fact, it is so authentic on the face of it that even their photographs are shot and then they models with different clothes, etc. And then they are exploited for sex working. So far as other countries are concerned, they are sent with false passport and documentation, other documentation required. Now in India, in many parts, under the guise of shelter homes or the shelter of religion, customs, human trafficking is taking place in the form of devdasi, then child marriage or recruitment as third gender. This is the biggest going on. They kidnap young children, boys especially, then emasculate them and make them third gender for the purpose of, again, begging or homosexual activities. Navneetam Pillai, a renowned South African jurist who served as United Nations High Commissioner 2008-2014, reported this. I quote, "Over the past few decades, human trafficking has moved from margins to mainstream of international concern. According to the International Labour Organization, there are 49.6 million victims of human trafficking globally, out of which 81% are trapped in forced labor, 75% are women and girls, and 25% are boys and girls, boys and men. And similarly, 9.8 billion people are trapped in forced sexual exploitation." Now, what are the steps taken in this regard? The most important international instrument to combat trafficking is what is known as Palermo Protocol. It was by the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organizations in 2000. Article 5 of this protocol requires all the states, that is nations, to criminalize trafficking, attempt or any other international participation or organizations in trafficking. Similarly, the International Labour Organization, like ILO, which focuses on forced labor or services of bonded laborers. Apart from general conventions globally, there are specific conventions like elimination of all forms of discrimination, Convention on the Right of Child, Convention of Protocol on Sale of Children, Children Prostitution, and Child Optional Protocol for Sale. Now, so far as India is concerned, you are aware, Article 23, which prohibits trafficking in human beings and beggary and other similar forms of forced labor. Article 39C and F ordains that health and strength of individuals are not abused and no one is to be forced by the economic necessity to do work unsuited to their age or strength, and that childhood and youth should be always protected against such exploitation. Similarly, there are many laws like Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, then new Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, section 137 to 146, then POCSO, protection of child from sexual offenses, prohibition of child marriage, Bonded Labor System Abolition Act, then Transplantation of Human Organs Act, etc. Now, my concern mainly was with human rights. What is the relationship between human trafficking and human rights? The basic concept of human rights is the right to dignity, liberty, and security. Added to that, right not to be subjected to slavery, forced labor, right of not subjecting to torture physically or mentally are all part of human rights, as well as even fundamental rights. There is a right of free movement, right of health, right of social security, right of adequate standard of living, etc. In respect of this human trafficking, all these human rights are violated. Now, having seen this scenario worldwide, let us now see the role of the state and its machinery, as well as the role of judicial system in preventing these. Unfortunately, my observations are, most of the time, the state machinery are reluctant to accept the responsibility for multiple reasons. One, it is interstate business. The child has been, or the person has been trafficked from other state. It is the responsibility of that state to take action. Many times, it is international. When the ship is caught or they're transporting international, they are caught. They say that it is international business. We can't do anything. Now, one more normal saying is that if they are caught, now it is for the police, criminal action to be taken, cases to be registered against them, and all those. It is to be noted, source of responsibility is not the act itself, but failure on the part of the state to take effective measures in preventing or responding to in accordance with the required standards usually found in the treaties should become the obligation of the states and its agencies. In spite of various laws I mentioned, unfortunately, the number of human trafficking is not coming down, it is going up, the graph is going up. And most of the time, it is the victims of this trafficking are punished as carrying sex work or begging, etc. But the real kingpins, who are the masters of this trafficking and who utilize this trafficking money, are never caught because they are very moneyed, rich and influential peoples. So it is the obligation of the state to find out who are the kingpins or masters and not subject these victims to the judicial criminal systems. Now, according to me, all these agencies like Government Social Welfare Department, Child and Women Protection Department, Labor Department, Home Department, especially police machinery, then judiciary, including Legal Services Authority, Human Rights Commissions, etc., have to take a leading role by bringing awareness, quick justice to the victims and punish the main offenders of the trafficking, as well as. Now, in the judgment by European Courts of Human Rights, it is stated, if the state authorities were aware or ought to have been aware of a risk of trafficking, a failure to take appropriate measures within their powers amounts to human rights violation. So, a human right approach requires that provisions of the care and support to the victims instead of subjecting them to the penal provisions. Now, it is critical to identify between the trafficker and the victim of this trafficking. Of course, it is heartening to note that in the recent years, Indian government has undertaken many measures, project of strengthening the law enforcement response, establishing anti-trafficking cells, establishment of different units in the country. Then recently that Ujjwala scheme, where the Union government has introduced comprehensive scheme for rescue, rehabilitation and reintegration. Unfortunately, in 2018, the Government of India has introduced a bill called the Trafficking of Persons Prevention, Protection and Rehabilitation Bill. No action was taken in 2018. Again, this bill was introduced in 2022, and again, it is not seeing the light of the day. At this stage itself, I would request all the brother advocates to look into this bill. I was going through that. It consists of nearly 59 sections. But what has been done under this act is constitute this committee, this tribunal, that tribunal, appellate authority, so and so forth. This is unusual, usual. And by the time the steps are taken, nothing happens. And the victim, suffers always. So unless the state machinery, especially investigating agency, plays active role in catching these masterminds or kingpins, instead of just arresting the sex workers or beggars, it would be wrong on their part in not catching the real victims. Now, there are many cases internationally and in the state, in India also. But the beautiful observation is in one of the European courts, Ranslave versus Cyprus and Russia. The European Court of Human Rights has identified obligation of the states as well as the duty and obligation of effective investigation and prosecution in respect of human trafficking. This applies to all states involved, namely the state of origin, the state of transit, and the state of destination. For this purpose, it is recommended that eminent duty of the coordination and cooperation between all the nation states must be immediately taken steps of. Now, in my view, following steps are required to be taken. Now, one, as I mentioned repeatedly, increased efforts to investigate and prosecute alleged kingpins or masterminds instead of catching or prosecuting the victims. Now, strengthening the existing anti-human trafficking units, what is called as AHTU, established in many states, by increasing their funding and more particularly the training to these staff. Now, systematically and proactively identify trafficking victims by screening for trafficking indicators among vulnerable population. This is one of the major cause because of the poverty. Now you have found out why they are, many times even parents sell their children because of the poverty. Now this is the duty to look into those vulnerable sections, why they are doing it, and try to prevent it, bringing awareness in them. Now, substantially increase efforts to identify these bonded laborers and slaves. Practically, they are working as slaves. In recently, I think there was some news that because he had taken a father had taken 5,000 rupees as a loan, the boy was caught and he was made to work in a hotel. And as the boy tried to escape, he was chained in the kitchen and kept there all along. And once the police somehow got the information and the boy was rescued. There are many of such instances where these bonded laborers are literally caught, kept in confinement by putting them under the proper training for the investigating agency, prosecutors and judges on the importance of restitution for the tragic victims, and urge legal aid officers to routinely inform, check the trafficking victims of available victim compensation mechanism. This is not being done. Now, need of establishment and implementation of bilateral agreements with the destination countries to enhance protection, which is absent till today. Develop and implement a regular monitoring and auditing mechanism of government-run and funded shelter homes. These are another institutions which are being misused. There are many good shelter homes. Of course, it was a duty of the Human Rights Commission to inspect or visit these these shelter homes. And in few of shelter homes, we found that the girls, especially, and young boys, orphan boys who are lodging there, were clandestinely sent in the night or in daytime for sex work to rich people to different hotels. Now, shelter homes must be audited properly, and check must be kept on these shelter homes. Now, the present bill shows that it must be registered and etc. A lot of laws are laid down in this regard. Now, as I was mentioning few of the judgments for the young people, Public at Large versus State of Maharashtra. High Court of Bombay has said, children are not only confined to large-scale abuses like sexual abuse, but also to what is known as white slave traffic, namely buying and selling children and women to export or import from one state to another or one country to another, and their permanent enslavement or servitude to an owner or proprietor of commercial establishment. Another judgment, Vishal Jeet versus Union of India, the Supreme Court issued directions to all the states for setting up rehabilitation centers for children found begging or even in sexual offenses, and protective houses for minor girls. who are pushed into the flesh trade. You are aware, Sheila Barse, one of the leading child rights activists, had a case of an incident or of a business in Goa. One Mr. Freddy, an European man, was running an NGO and a shelter home for children. And he was getting funds from abroad. And he had nearly 100 children with him. And the main object of this was not to give shelter, but the children were used as sex slaves and mainly for pornographic purposes. Sheila Barse found out this and filed a case, public interest litigation. Of course, the children were rescued and that Mr. Freddy from Goa was prosecuted. Of course, you are aware, Bannurmath Morcha case, where Supreme Court laid down guidelines for in respect of bonded labours and forced labours. Friends, I feel mere judicial pronouncements are not enough to tackle this gigantic problem of human trafficking. For this evil, the best way to deal with human trafficking is through holistic approach. Now, social service providers, civil societies, private sector and general public, in coordination with police and judiciary, all have to play a major role in identifying and helping the victims as well as, if possible, the kingpins. But ultimately, it is the mindset of the people themselves who are to be educated in this regard about their human rights, about the illegal trafficking going on, and the violations and remedies available. As such, unless a specially trained team consisting of a state administration, investigating agency, human rights forums are not formed and trained properly, the menace of human trafficking and violation of human rights will continue all over the world to the end. As I said, please look into this new bill, the old bill, and if possible, commission can also look into that, Jurist Commission, we can look into it. And I feel there are mistakes are there and which we have to remedify. As I was saying, these steps go on endless. Committee at the district level, committee at the High Court level, state level, taluka level, then Supreme Court, High Court, Tribunal, etc. Now we have to bring this down. Unless these steps are taken, these victims go on suffering and the kingpins go on making money. Let us take a pledge to contribute in preventing this inhuman crime. Thank you. God bless you all. And once again, thank you for all the invitation.
Thank you very much, sir, for that scintillating lecture and also some very sobering thoughts and statistics. If you don't mind, if you could take a few questions. If there are any questions in the audience, we'll take questions for about 5 minutes.
I invite questions for one reason, to know whether they have understood what I have spoken or they feel that they know everything.
I mean, there could also be comments if anybody's reviewed the bill and suggestions on how the lecture ends.
Honorable Justice Bannurmath, Madhu, Vice President, Honorable Judge Mr. Ashok, and all my friends. As you know, one of the main objects of our Commission of Jurists is protection of human rights. And on the said subject, we have been conducting certain lectures so as to educate us and give us guidance for our activities. And when we thought of a lecture on this topic now. We thought the most competent person to speak on the topic is Honorable Justice Bannurmath. Not merely because of his experience as a public prosecutor and a government advocate and a judge of the High Court and a Chief Justice of the High Court. More than all that, he has rendered great service in the field as chairman of the Maharashtra Human Rights Commission for a period of 5 years. And he has been, as he has been always saying, the work that he has done in his entire life, the most satisfying part of the work is what he did in Maharashtra, one of the largest states, as a chairman of the Human Rights Commission. And thereafter, of course, as you all know, on the legislative field, whatever has to be done, he took the responsibility as the chairman of the Karnataka State Law Commission, of which office he demitted recently. But so far as my personal knowledge goes, the government, though appoints a law commission, they have not taken full advantage of their expertise wherever required. In fact, I was surprised to know recently new criminal laws amendment. The state government is not satisfied with enactment, I agree. So many amendments they propose. I was surprised to find that the government has chosen to make proposal for amendment without consulting a law commission headed by a person of the experience of Justice Bannurmath. Whatever it is, I thought he will be the fittest person to give a talk on this subject. Now we will all agree that he has given a very exhaustive summary of not only the cause for the malaise and the actual malaise and how victims are being exploited, how the investigating and prosecuting agencies are punishing the victims rather than those. Both, in fact, I was always thinking, why we are not able to stop this begging. But we are told there is a big gang, very rich people, engaging these boys and maimed people, disabled people to beg. That is why, in spite of all the effort, we are not able to put down, because the persons who are responsible, not, and even in the case of prostitution, rightly the act doesn't make prostitution itself as an offense, because she is the victim. But the problem is the person who has to be prosecuted is the brothel keeper or the pimp or such other things. These are the things. Even with regard to labor. Now yesterday, I find a news item. There is a organization which provides domestic help to the people, and they contract. If the particular help engaged, they find it unsatisfactory, they remove them, provide them another, like that service. I don't know how, whether there could be such a organization at all. And the Consumer Forum awarded compensation to the person for the failure of the company to provide the alternate medical help, etc. I don't know whether this is permissible. In olden times, in our South Kent or other places, there were some people who were doing this so-called labor contractors. They recruit many people for working in the ghats in coffee estate and tea estate, and they earn a lot of profit exploiting these people. Now, contract labor, though it is abolished, it is there in some form or other. Anyway, His Lordship has explained all the malaise, and I am grateful to him for ultimately giving out so many recommendations. It is for the government and the other organization to take advantage of the expertise and the recommendations and to implement them. And particularly on behalf of the Commission, we assure that we will take note of the recommendation, and whatever is within our power, we will try to render cooperation to the government or any other authority. And the most important authority will be the Human Rights Commission. Government appoints only for name's sake. The chairman is not there for a long time. Even today, there is no chairman for the commission. It has to be a former Chief Justice. After Justice Waghela retired, I think no chairman is appointed. Presently, there is an IAS officer.
Chief Justice is removed. Judge is said to be appointed. And that will not
Even that is not done. And even if they are appointed, sufficient funds are not provided. Staff is not given. That is the state. Some of these commissions are appointed because the law requires it. It is the state which has to, and we are prepared to cooperate with the State Law Commission in respect of these rights, because protection of human rights is one of our main objectives. And I sincerely thank Justice Bannurmath and all those who have attended this function. Thank you very much. Thank you. Formal vote of thanks.
A very good evening, one and all. It's my honor, actually. Sir, your speech is very effective, and also it has broadened our understanding. And we pledge on behalf of the Commission as well as our legal community that we will take active steps in our endeavors. And also I thank you for this gracing this occasion, sir. I also thank...
and we are proud that he is our member.
He is our member also.
Of the commission.
I also thank our beloved President, Acharya sir, and I also thank one and all present here, especially the legal community and also audience and students for making this event a grand success. Thank you very much.